Um, anyway, y'all, listen, before I lay it down for the night, before I turn it in for the night, I don't care what a swamp rat had to say about me. I'll drag you on Interloper Nation when I feel like it. 'Cause you're a little bitch. I need a diss song. I need a swamp rat diss song. Anyway, 20 and back. Project Looking Glass. Project Montauk. It's kind of just like a title of 3 different topics, really. 3 different projects. I don't know if any of you all have ever heard of some of these projects, like the 20 and back, Project Looking Glass. I mean, we talked about Project Serpo. That seemed like something that was a bit unbelievable for some of you guys. But if time travel it's not a matter of going from point A to point B. That's where it gets detailed and different, right? When we're talking about, transdimensional mechanics and quantum tunneling and all that fun stuff. It's not about getting from point A to point B in such and such amount of time, like, A plus B equals C, your classic, very simple algebra problem. This is algebra times 50, of course. But it's about taking that distance and shortening it by bending it. And that's where you'll hear people talk about bending the fabric of space-time, all right? Bending space-time. Instead of you going to it, going from point A to point B, and it taking 20 years to get there type thing. But here's the thing about space travel, time travel, all that sort of a thing. The moment that you step off of Earth, honestly, and I don't even think it's really stepping off Earth. It's the moment that you step out to the edges, to the fringes, to the edges of human civilization. Only then will time become a non-factor. From the very moment that we were born on this earth, from our very first moment until now, all of us are conditioned to 24 hours a day. Calendars, 12 months in a year, such and such, so many days per month, so many days per year, except every 4 years when it's leap year, that sort of a thing. Human beings. I mean, imagine a race of beings that are so intelligent, they can create crafts that will fly without any sound. They're not using rocket boosters and engines like you and I are used to. They're using gravity propulsion-based systems. They're literally creating their own gravity field around them. Man, think about that. So it doesn't really matter how fast you go, necessarily. Going at it like speed of light, what's that? That doesn't even matter at that point. Because, when you think about some of these videos that you have seen, some of these crafts, it's like they just disappear in a flash, right? They're bending that space time, and you can't see it, but it's there. Have any of you all ever been like traveling, went on a road trip that was 6, 7, 8 hours long? You know it's supposed to be an 8 hour, this trip is going to take us 7 minutes and 7 hours and 56 minutes. I looked at Google. I did everything. I timed this trip down from A to Z. And somehow, some way, get in your car and you're concentrating so much on being there that 2 hours sands the time that it should have took you. So 5 hours later, you're there. Has that ever happened to you guys before? Because if it has, then you somehow transcended your brain and your mind to do it. And you turned and you manifested something that you could not see into a reality. That shit really happens. You get in, get behind the wheel of a car and just focus on being there. It's just the intention of being there. And then look at your watch. When you get there, time yourself. And you'll notice that you may shorten the time it takes. It doesn't mean you're going to see anything different. It's not a matter of that. It's bigger than that. I mean, imagine again, if you look at going from point A to point B to get to point C, right? A plus B equals C. And in order to get to C, right? But imagine if you could you could just stand where A is, grab B, pull it to you, and bam, C's right there. It's like taking a piece of paper, and on each side of that piece of paper, in between, that's like interstellar space. And I need to get from here to Jupiter within my lifetime, because that's what we're talking about out here. When we're talking about, travel in space and transdimensional travel and all that sort of a thing, we're talking about, damn, will I be able to do any of this in my lifetime? I'd love to go to Jupiter, but will I be able to do it in my lifetime? Will I even be able to get there? And all of us have these visions of craft, launching from Cape Canaveral with our little puny little rockets, getting up into orbit, getting to Jupiter, astronauts floating in the cabin of the vehicle, losing muscle mass, eating cat food to stay alive. When truth is, you can get from here to Jupiter in a split second. Because if you're standing here on Earth and you grab Jupiter and you bend it to you, and plop, you go through that portal or window or door or whatever you want to call it, bam, you're right there in a split second. That is the technology that we're talking about here. When we get into gravity, crafts that are the propulsion system or the energy source is gravity itself, and you realize that the laws of physics that you learned all these years, well, they may apply to the first layers of Earth. But there's something that, as human beings, we didn't figure out when the Philadelphia experiment took place. And that's kind of, that's what sort of, that project just so interesting, because when you think about the fact that these sailors on the USS Eldridge literally disappeared themselves, showed up in a port all the way in Norfolk to reappear back in the shipyard that it was in. But when it reappeared, the sailors, the crew that was on board the USS Eldridge during this experiment were literally fused to the ship. I don't know if you all have seen photos of them being fused to the ships. That's the fear of time traveling, not having it wrong, and not getting the mass, right? Actual solid mass moved quicker before the flash, before the boat reappears. And it's almost like the boat object reappears, maybe just a nanosecond before the human beings did. And they ended up being fused to the ship. And of course, these crew members were killed. This top secret experiment, I mean, the USS government has all but admitted it, I mean, at this point. But here, I'll show you a picture. I don't know who got these photos. I think it was I want to say the guy's name was like Carl Allen or something like that. I can't remember the guy's name, but he knew about this project. And, as far as like trying to anticipate all the algorithms that go into something like this, I'm sure trying to calculate this, they're looking at how much that ship weighs versus all the individual people on that. But like, there's a whole lot that goes into the algorithms of the math, the mathematical equation that they're using when they're running through these projects. And you can kind of see it's like the soldiers or sailors, it's almost as if the ship appeared, maybe in the wrong sequence or something. And these sailors, they come back and boom, they're right in the middle of God. Could you imagine dying from something like that? Some, it looks like they, fell through the floor. And they say that when you warp, when you warp space-time, you're not necessarily going to notice anything, but you would be literally gone in a flash. Now, could you imagine the families of those of the crew that were lost on this experiment? It's like, how the Navy just decide, yeah, we'll. This is probably the best picture, I think, of the experiments. This one. It's like the most clearest photo. You can literally see the sailor's arms, leg in the hull of the USS Eldridge. You can see one sailor here. You can see another sailor, almost like he had his hands up walking through the wall like he's in mid-step. One sailor who managed to get through the experiment without being fused to it, but standing up and clothes torn. I mean, obviously the energy that was used, obviously something really crazy happened. I mean, obviously these men look to be burnt. You can see smoke, and obviously these photos would have been taken immediately after the experiment took place. This is another one here with one of the sailors. who had been, I mean, fused to the hull of the ship, but it's like just his right hand, right leg, right? I'm not sure if the position of where these men were standing had a damn thing to do with anything, but that is crazy. Like, what is that energy that hovered over the ship that day? That ball of energy that was captured on that photo. That I think sometimes the US government releases because they need help because they don't have any more answers. But if you think about it, almost like taking a photo, and the fact that you have to move mass, a relatively large amount of mass through the lens before the flash is done, before the camera has flashed and the flash is over. You've got to move all that mass through that camera lens before that flash is over. It's almost like the human beings didn't get through the portal all the way successfully or something. But an incredible story nonetheless. I mean, incredible story. Hold on a sec, y'all. All right. Guys, I'm out of here. I appreciate everybody that came through. Hey, Emmanuel, good to see you. Hell, I may even go catch some sort of content on that. You never know.